Hello there, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and in this video I'd like to share with you a time lapse taken from a 6-part lesson series where we create a drawing of a sea turtle with pen and ink. Now, to access this complete lesson series, you have to be a member over at thevirtualinstructor.com. If you're interested in learning more about our comprehensive and unique learning program, just click on the link in the upper right hand corner or click on the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy the following video. So we begin this drawing working with a 2H graphite pencil, which of course is a lighter graphite pencil, on Bristol paper, and we're working on the vellum surface here. You can see here that we started with larger shapes, and these larger shapes actually ensure greater accuracy. We can concentrate on getting the overall shapes in place using looser strokes with the pencil, and then once those larger shapes are in place, then we can concentrate on the contour lines. We start by defining the outer contours, then we can focus on those details, those little spots in the eye and the mouth and all the little details that we see on the body of the sea turtle. Too many beginning artists start with the contour lines and get frustrated when there's some distortion in their drawing, but by starting with larger shapes we can ensure greater accuracy. You can see as we go along we can make some alterations to our contour line drawing. After all, this is what the pencil sketch is there for, to create a nice base in which we can apply the pen and ink applications over the top. So once our graphite drawing is in place, we can use a kneaded eraser to gently lift up some of the graphite, leaving a very faint version of our sea turtle in place, and then of course we can start making the pen and ink applications. In this particular drawing we started with the head, because of course that's going to be the focal point, but also because it's on the left side of the picture plane, and since I'm right-handed it made sense to work from the left side of the picture plane to the right side of the picture plane. Now you can see in this first initial pass of pen and ink applications, we just basically plan out all the details that we've already laid in place with the graphite pencil. Then we go back in and start developing some of the shading. Now, a lot of people get confused when you're discussing shading. They think that any value application should be considered shading, but in this case we went in, we defined some of the values first, some of the darker values. Then we started adding shading with some hatching and cross hatching. We continued to work our way down the neck, adding some of those wrinkles and some of those interesting textures that happen there on the body. Again, just changing the directional strokes that we make here with the pen and ink to create the different textures. Now, these lines, of course, should flow over the form of the subject that you're drawing. So that means the line is going to change direction depending on what part of the body you're drawing, or for your particular subject, if you're drawing something other than a sea turtle, of course. After we established many of the applications for the neck, we moved our way over to the right fin, which is on the left side of the screen here, and with a smaller nib pen, we first defined some of the wrinkles and things that happen on that fin. Then we went in and defined some of the spots, and you can see that these are darker value applications. But then it was time to start developing the shading. You can see we're using hatching and cross hatching over the top of these marks to create some areas of shadow that happen over here. And you can see here clearly that the directional strokes that we make here are important. They flow over the form of the fin. Then we worked our way to the second front fin, again creating a variety of different textures there by just changing the direction and the length of the mark. Of course, there are a variety of different ways that you can create contrast in a drawing or a painting. The obvious way, of course, is to create some areas that are darker and lighter, and that's contrast in value, but we can also create contrast in texture, and we create this in a pen and ink drawing by changing the directional strokes that we make with the pen. By making small circular strokes compared to more horizontal or vertical strokes or even diagonal strokes, we create different textures. So that's why working with line, of course, is so important in a pen and ink drawing, using line to its fullest potential. You can see here that we took a break from the spots on one of the fins and worked our way up to some of the patterns on the shell. And here you can really see how important those directional strokes are. These directional strokes, of course, flow over the form of the back of the shell itself. But it wasn't too much longer until we went back to the fin here. In this case, we're adding a bit of shading over the top, and that's because this particular fin is mostly in shadow, so just some directional strokes right over the top created a darker value, and then we could go back and make some of those spots a little bit darker. It's always a good idea, especially when working with pen and ink, to work a little bit lighter than you think an area needs to be. You can always go back and make it a little bit darker with additional marks. And then we just worked our way down, again, working from the left side to the right side, adding bits of shadow, a variety of different textures, again, by just changing the directional strokes that we make with the pen. Line is such an invaluable tool. Of course, it's one of the 7 elements of art, but we can use it in so many different ways to create so many different textures, and of course to create the illusion of form, value, and the light source. Then, of course, it was back to the pattern on the back of the shell, again continuing that directional stroke making, leaving open spaces for the lighter areas of value. Now, for each little section on the back of the shell, the directional strokes changed, and we learned which direction we should make those strokes based on what the photo reference was telling us. You can see on the underbelly, we're creating those little spots down there, and of course also creating an indication of some darker value as well, and you can really see how those directional strokes are important under the belly of the sea turtle as well. Then on the back fin, we just filled in the spots as we did with the front fin, again using directional stroking to create darker value. We worked a little bit lighter than we thought the value needed to be before we went back in and made it a little bit darker with additional applications. Now, of course, there's some shadow that's happening down here underneath the shell, so right over the top of the areas where we've already established the value, we just simply went back in and added some additional indications of shadow with hatching and cross-hatching. Then we increased the line quality by making some of the lines a little bit thicker in areas. And then, of course, lastly, we went in with a kneaded eraser and erased any remaining graphite lines, of course, after the ink had dried, to complete our drawing. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember, if you want to learn more about our membership program, just click on the link in the description below. And if you want to take a look at 3 of our course modules for free, you can do so. Again, just click on the link in the upper right-hand corner. You'll get 3 free course modules. Each course module includes a video and a downloadable ebook. Thanks so much for watching, and I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.